Good morning. What's up, everybody? Come on in to the Rooted in Progress Stream Center, where you should be sharing, liking, tagging, subscribing on YouTube, on Facebook, on Instagram. What else? Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Yes, all you got to do is search Rooted in Progress. What's up, everybody? It's your girl, Deanne King.
And it's your boy, Terrance Middlebrooks. Hey, episode 6 is here.
You ready?
I'm ready, man. We just want to recap. This is our 6th episode, Deanne. Or, can you believe that? Like 6 weeks ago, we launched this thing. So
it's really the thought of everything it took to even get to the initial launch, and then to be 6 episodes in is just remarkable. The feedback has been incredible. All of our supporters, people who have joined across the nation, we truly appreciate you. Again, if you're just joining us for the first time, Rooted in Progress, we're all about talking about the progression within the Black community here in Tampa, here in the state of Florida, across the nation just as a whole. So make sure you are liking, sharing, subscribing on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube, and following us on social media. We got a good one for the people today. Let them know what we're talking about today, Terrance.
Hey, a heavy hitter. We're discussing mental health in the Black community.
Yeah,
which is huge. It's just a big topic, and I'm excited to dive into this episode. Some form or fashion, I think we all deal with mental health.
That's real,
and we're gonna describe on what that looks like, all the symptoms, and the most important thing that we're going to discuss is how to seek help.
Yeah,
how to seek help,
and where to go.
And where to go.
Where to go, what those resources look like. And I'm so excited. We have Dr. Lisa Martin in the building. Bow, 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 bow. Give her a hand clap. She is incredible, clinical psychologist. We were joking with her because Terrance was like, I want to discuss Black men and mental health. She's like, I have MBA clients. Terrance, I mean...
Well, I am outnumbered on this podcast most of the time, and I'm definitely outnumbered on the behind the scenes team that we have. So, but I can't forget about the fellas.
Of course, we appreciate all our men.
Yes, we suffer. The main thing about men, especially the Black men, is we feel like we got everything, as young boys, and we'll dive into this. I don't want to jump into this right now.
I was about to say, Terrance, we didn't even ask Dr. Martin how she's doing today.
Let me stop.
How you doing today, Dr. Martin?
Yeah, Dr. Martin, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Hi, thank you. Yeah. I'm excited to be here. I'm feeling good. I just want to thank you both for inviting me on the podcast today, but also for having this podcast. Such important conversations that you're having here that we need to be having with each other. So
absolutely.
Really appreciate you giving this out to the community.
Yeah. Thank you. We appreciate you joining us. So for folks, again, who may have never heard of Rooted in Progress, this stemmed from our Black History Month special that we aired in February. And Dr. Martin so graciously was a part of that as well, where we were able to discuss mental health in the Black community, but it was quick. So that's why we have this podcast where we're able to revisit some really important conversations and be able to dive in more. Well, I had no time constraints and none of that. So we are just, like we said, sitting at the kitchen table, really having some important questions. I think I want to open this up with, like, when people say mental health, Dr. Martin, like, what are we talking about? What is mental health?
Well, it has a wide range of possibilities, but what I like to think is that it's not just what happens in your brain. It's your emotions, it's what's going on in your body, and it's how you're reacting to all of that. So it really takes place in a multiple ways in your life and in your person. And when we're talking about mental health, we're like talking about whether or not you can show up and do what you need to do.
Right.
Whether that's work, whether that's parenting, whether that's being a part of your community, being invested in your relationships, all of that. And when you're not feeling well, whether or not you know that you're feeling well or not, by the way, one or more of those areas suffer. And you can start to feel disconnected. You can start to isolate. You can start to show up to those relationships with more anger, more rage that's necessary.
Yeah. And I think when you grow up, especially being Black, right? And for the folks tuning in, if you feel this, let us know. I think we grow up in a culture where it's like, you don't have room to not be okay, right? Because we're already just grateful to be and have a seat at the table. So then for you to tack on mental issues on top of that, you don't have time to call in sick if you just need a mental day. I feel like we're raised in a culture as Black people and just minorities in general, where it's like, you barely got here. So get it together and push through. Is that toxic?
That's real toxic. And it goes way back.
Yeah.
I mean, there are serious repercussions for us back when we were enslaved, and there are still serious repercussions for us now if we show up to our workspaces with our full emotion.
Yeah.
Right? If you're a Black woman in a workspace, for example, and you're feeling anxious, that emotion gets read usually as anger, and the repercussions for that are not good, right?
Yeah.
It impacts your livelihood. It impacts your ability to progress in the workplace. So when we're socialized that way from young, it's actually to protect us, because they know when we're out there in the world with people that don't look like us, with people that don't understand our history and our emotions, the impact of that is just too much to risk.
Yeah. Wow. That's real. How do you feel about that, Terrance?
Man, she hit the nail on the head with that one. And that's true. I feel like that. I mean, it probably dates back. Well, I know it dates back to slavery days.
Yep.
It's funny, man, because I heard a story a while back of just how, they say Black parents are overprotected of their children. And it's been that way from generation to generation to generation. And it stems back from slavery when, you had to watch over your kids, and keep an eye on them. And so that overly protection came from way back then.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's carrying over from generation to generation. Heck, even in my own kids. I remember my mom used to always tell, boy, don't play in that tree. Get out of those bushes.
Right.
Little stuff like that. And
Right.
and then it just it developed to where it caused us to have a shutdown where we didn't know how to open up. We didn't know how to push the limits or go and seek help or ask for help or anything like that. So my question to you, Dr. Lisa, is what are some of the signs that we need to look for when we feel like someone need that help?
Well, it's so tricky because of that socialization, because we've been socialized to keep it in. It often doesn't show up the same way. So for me, as a psychologist being trained, the way I was trained to look for mental health issues doesn't apply to our community in the same way, right? So when sisters and brothers come to me, what I hear often are physical things.
Yeah.
I got a headache, my back hurts, I'm so tired, right? So tired.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm going to hear before I hear I'm depressed. That's what I'm going to hear before I hear I'm hearing voices, right? So a lot of times it shows up in our body. I think that isolation is a big one. You pull away from the supports you have. You start thinking those supports are out to get you or not there to, not there for you. So the isolation is a big one. And the anger. Like rage is a healthy response to being Black in America.
Right. Absolutely.
So I am not saying push that away, right? Because that's real. You're crazy if you don't have it.
Right.
But it's how we use it. And I know that you all have taken that rage you have and things you've seen, and you've made something beautiful with this podcast.
Oh, thank you.
Yes.
Right? And I've done the
Absolutely.
same with my work. And so it's about how we funnel and channel that rage into something healthy. But when you see it in brothers and sisters and it's eating them up,
Right.
that's when it's a problem. That's when you know they need help.
What about the friend, the family member who still acts like they have it all together? I think far too often even just in news, right? The sound bite from the family is, man, we never knew. Oh, they were just fine. Like, we would have never imagined it was Deanne. There's no way she would have ever done that. Is there a way to dig deeper? What are we doing? Is it the, hey, how you doing? Oh, I'm good. Is it that we need to do a more in-depth follow-up? Like, are you really good? How do you decipher when you're dealing with someone who says they're okay and they're really not?
That's a tough one.
Yeah.
And, all psychologists will say that, like, one of our hardest things is getting our own family members into therapy.
Oh,
So-
I bet.
So I know that it can be a challenge, but don't abandon them,
Yeah.
right? Stay with them. Even though they're pushing you away, they need to know that you're still there. So even if it's, I love you, sending you text messages, I'm here for you. Also, another thing I've learned along the way, as I say, my decolonization from my training,
Right.
is that it doesn't have to just be therapy. Sometimes getting someone into therapy, there's so much stigma in our community about that. So sometimes that step is hard.
Yeah.
But what they will join is a prayer group. What they will do is go on a walk with you. Like, they'll do a drum circle, something else that still hits that. Because remember what I said, this mental health stuff shows up in our bodies and our emotions and our spirits. So to me, it's just as important to get their body moving and get that stuff processing as it is to sit, in a session with me.
Right.
So whatever way you can target that or support that is best. You don't have to keep harping on the therapy.
You brought up stigma. What are some of those stigmas, especially that minority communities face when it comes to mental health?
I mean, we're not supposed to share the family's dirty laundry.
Hello. Don't tell her about my business.
Right.
Ooh.
What happens in this house stays in this house.
Yep.
Yes.
That is huge.
Well,
Huge.
and I'll add to this. When I was growing up, you fall down on your bike, you better not cry.
Boy, you better get up.
Yes.
Get up and wipe that off.
Yes.
Throw some little dirt on it.
Yep.
Keep it moving.
Strong. You got to be strong.
Gotta
And
be strong.
somehow means sucking it up and holding those emotions in. When actually strong is getting help when you need it.
Yeah.
Strong is being well enough to be able to take care of your family and show up for your community.
Absolutely.
We need to change the narrative about what strength is for us.
So that stigma is indoctrinated.
Yeah.
We
We have
gotta
a
do
stat
better.
that
Yeah.
I want to pull up. Doctor, we want you to just talk this through. And I'm sorry that bottom lower third there is covered, but I'll pull up as we dive into the first bullet point. In 2020, suicide was the third leading cause of death, respectively, for all blacks or African American ages 15 to 24. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah. I mean, and just, that statistic, it hits me hard. And what I know about it is that it's not accurate because our kids are killing themselves in other ways. It's a slow suicide.
Yeah.
It's again that detachment from life and people. It's engaging in risky behaviors. It's giving up on their future, and that doesn't get caught in that stat. But of course, this is happening.
Yeah.
Every time our kids turn on the TV, turn on social media, when they go to school, when they watch their parents struggle, their message is that they ain't worth anything, that they're not worth anything, that they're not valued, that there's nothing for them to do. And so, of course, you start turning in on yourself and giving up.
And with the addition of 2020, that's also COVID year. So the world shut down. These kids were isolated. So I know that has, or just people were isolated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah. And, the gains that we were making in schools has backslid.
Yeah.
And our community was impacted more than other communities.
Wow. Yeah, that brings up the Black community, like other communities of color, are more likely to experience socioeconomic disparities, such as exclusion from health, educational, social, and economic resources. My sister brought this up yesterday, not in regards to mental health, but just health in general. My niece, right? They told her she needed to get some scans done. And she called the doctor ahead of time to see, are you all available to do these scans? They said, yeah, come on over. So what does she do? She hops in her car and she goes down the street and she goes to go get those scans. Well, when she pulls up, they say, oh no, the person doing the scans is gone. You can't be seen. That's the difference between access and socioeconomic, because she said, what if I didn't have a car and I had to Uber and those were the last $30 that I had? I now can no longer, my child can't get those scans.
Right.
That's the difference. That's how close it is as it relates to a disparity in healthcare. So I can only imagine that's medical. I can only imagine mental health care, which isn't included, honestly, even in a lot of insurances and with a lot of jobs, right?
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. And the other thing to understand about these disparities is that they're in every system. They're in every institution. And so it's not just that we're battling racism in the healthcare industry and the mental health care system. It's in our education.
Yep.
It's in the bank loans. It's in our neighborhood. It's everywhere. And so, of course, the outcome is disparities in our physical health. We're not living as long. We have all these health outcomes related to stress, related to the food that is available in our communities. Like it compounds on itself.
Unbelievable. The third bullet point is only 1 in 3 Black adults will, with mental illness, receive treatment. Wow.
Why?
Why is that?
And I even think that it's probably worse than that,
Worse.
quite frankly, because they're probably not counting folks with anxiety, folks with depression, that, it's not formal mental illness in that way,
Right.
but it's still, they could use the help and support. Like you said, part of that is a lot of insurance providers don't even cover mental health.
Yeah.
Part of that is it's so closely aligned, unfortunately, with the criminal justice system. So what happens to us as Black folks is most likely if you have a mental illness, like severe mental illness, so think schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, you're more likely to be in the criminal justice system versus in the mental health care system.
My goodness.
Right. So that's also why that's happening is we don't even when we have substance use issues.
Right.
We don't get funneled into treatment. We get funneled into prison.
And I think we keep seeing this, right? Like you're bringing up that it honestly brings up the most recent case with Miss Sonia.
Yes.
Right. And so these people are having mental episodes. Law enforcement officers are responding, and they're responding using the tools that they have: handcuffs, tasers, guns.
Yeah.
More like handcuffs and guns.
Right.
No
we
taser.
skipped the taser part, right?
Yeah.
We're not going to go there. But we're seeing that response, but we are seeing some communities, ours included, where they're changing that, right? So when 911 gets that call and it does sound more like a mental health crisis, you have mental health experts responding as opposed to law enforcement, who, by the way, are not trained.
Yeah.
Law enforcement, by the way, not trained to react to a mental health crisis.
Right. And they themselves traumatized.
Right.
And easily triggered. Right.
My goodness.
Yes.
And
My
that goes
goodness.
back to knowing the signs of mental illness
Yes.
and understanding that and with all of us.
Yeah. And knowing what it looks like in our community.
Yes.
Yeah, that brings up, we have some statistics on Black men.
Absolutely.
And what happens. I feel like that's a whole nother layer. You live it, Terrance.
I do. And it kind of started, how I started off the show was basically wanted to dive into, for years, we were taught to be strong. Strong Black men, strong men in general. The provider, the protector, get up, don't cry. I played football. You didn't want to come off the field if you were injured. So what'd you do? You fought through that. And that carries over to real life. That carries over when the money's just not coming in. That carries over to bills are due. How do you, hey, don't worry about it. I got it. I got it. I'm good. How many times have we heard that? Even us guys, we hang out with each other.
And then what's the added layer when you lose it?
Yeah, what's the
You
added
lose
layer?
the money.
Yeah.
You lose the job and
You know
all of
what?
those
You
things.
know what it
And you
is?
enter a space where, have I lost myself? Have I lost my identity?
Well, and then it's just that we're big on our egos.
Yeah.
Even then when we lose the job and lose the money, I'm good. Because we're taught to, hopefully most of us are taught to pivot. There might be that down period, you have no job. There might be that down period where you have no money, but hey, I'm gonna bounce back.
Right.
But then what if you don't bounce back? How do we bounce back? So this first statistic is between 15 to 28% of Black men may experience depression. However, again, 2020 study found that Blacks and Hispanic men aged 18 to 44 were less likely than white men to seek mental health treatment for depression or anxiety.
Yeah. I mean, I think also we need to have a discussion about how few there are of us.
Yeah.
You know,
Us meaning
Black
mental health
clinicians.
counselors.
Yeah. I think there's
Hello.
like 3% of
Ding,
us.
ding, 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 ding.
And so
That's what we talked about this morning,
and
Deanne and I.
who are the clinicians available able to understand what trauma looks like in our people?
Yeah.
Are they able to hold it and respond to it and not have their own biases and their own, you know, upbringing in this world that impacts the ability of our people to get help?
Right.
So, you know, I understand why we're not going in droves to this system, because there's not enough people who are trained enough to actually hold it.
Yeah, and help, because another example, a good friend of mine who is a Black man who is he is gay, right? So when looking for a therapist, we're searching for Black gay male therapists. Y'all, I'm on page 9 of Google just trying to find the second one.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so when you're talking about representation and you want someone, of course, who has the training, right, and the education as it relates to being a psychologist or a counselor or something like that, or a therapist, right? But you also want that extra step of someone who knows what it's like to be you, who knows what it's like to walk in your shoes. And you are right. There are so few.
Yeah.
Especially for Black men.
Yes.
So what can we do for our Black men?
Well, we can organize. You know, I think it's really important as we're having this conversation to remember the resiliency that is in our community, and to, you know, we are having this conversation about our trauma, but we also have to hold that we are resilient, beautiful, powerful, and have been taking care of our people through horror. Right. And so I think there are things that are naturally here that we can invoke to help. So, you know, church groups, men organizing other men. I know there's a lot of work being done in barbershops.
Yes.
There we go.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think we have to think outside of the box of the traditional behavioral healthcare system to think of how to get people together.
And oh, go ahead, Terrance.
Well, and I was going to say, you hit the nail on the head. I used to always say the barbershop is the Black man's country club.
Yeah.
So we go in there and we talk, and we express our feelings. However, it goes no further than the barbershop.
Yeah.
You know, and when we go out there and we need direction, and we need guidance, and we need counseling, where do we turn to?
Yeah.
I think one of my biggest issues is that what I suffer with, or what I'm suffering with, like Deanne mentioned, I want to find someone who specializes in that. Yeah. But the main thing is specialize in someone that looks like me. Yeah. Someone that looks like me. Someone that can relate to issues that I'm dealing with.
It's hard.
And the walk that I'm walking.
It's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard to find it. And I think it's also hard to accept it. I want to talk about what it looks like on a larger scale, right? So I feel like we're having more and more conversations about mental health. Do you feel that way, just in general?
Yeah, I think that some of the language of my world has spilled out into the general lexicon of our country for good and bad. Right? Like everyone's a narcissist now, and you know, it's
man, that word.
That's true.
Everyone has OCD. It's not quite you know what it should be, but I'm glad it's helping to destigmatize it a little bit.
We're seeing it on the international level. I think someone who we can all see ourselves in, even Terrance, even though she's a woman, but it's Simone Biles.
Yes.
Simone, she just had a special released on Netflix, and here we are through the Olympic time, right? We're heading into another Olympics. Just last Olympics in Tokyo, all these people had all these high expectations. Simone Biles, the best gymnast in the world, and all these things, including us, media, we're guilty, right? Because we're boosting all of this, and she's that one person. You know what I mean? She's that one person who has to have everything, all of that weight is on her shoulders, right? And so she bows out. Simone said, I'm out of here. I'm experiencing twisties. I don't know where I'm at. I can't function. I might hurt myself. I could kill myself by damaging, she could land on her head because she wasn't in the right mental space. And what was the response that we saw across the country? Oh, she's not strong enough. Oh, how she let all of us down. Oh, how dare the best gymnast in the world. She's not the best. Oh, how are you gonna let your teammates down? You, and I know we joked about it earlier, Dr. Martin, but you've had clients on this kind of level and they have that pressure on them. What do you tell them? What do you tell a Simone Biles who's going through something like that personally?
That just what happened to her, that your health and your wellness is more important than anything. And that when you take the risk to take care of yourself, it actually makes you an even better hero and role model to everyone else that needs to be able to say, I need a break. I need peace. Like the problem in this country, and the problem in one of the struggles of being Black in this country, is that we think that our only value lies in our work and in what our bodies can produce. She turned it on her head. On its head, right? On her head, on
literally.
its head. And it's like, no, my value is in my peace. My value is in my mental wellness. And I think that we can all learn a lot from that, from her leadership.
Yeah, that's exactly what she did. I viewed it as a big step. She took a huge step. Yeah. And I think she also kind of brought this conversation. She woke it up. She woke a lot of people up, not just here in the United States, but across the world, that you can be a Simone Biles and need a break. You can be Simone Biles and need to take care of yourself. She says she got into therapy. She even helped her husband get into therapy. And like you said, I think it's getting your family, somebody just taking that step. So therefore, someone who's so close to you, you feel like, okay, I can do it too, right? Sometimes you just need that example. There was something you want to say,
Well,
Terrance?
I was just going to say this, according to Simone Biles, is that she's an athlete who trains for an event once every 4 years. And for her to speak up and step aside is big. It's not like a professional athletes here in the States that, NFL, NBA, MLB player, NHL player, soccer, where they play game after game, night after night, season after season. So for her to really step up and speak out and step away from something she's been training with for 4 years, it goes to show you that mental illness is real and can really take a major toll on all of us. So, man.
Shout out to Simone Biles.
Shout out to Simone
Because now
Biles
she
and
coming
her
back
bravery.
in Paris and gonna kill the thing and do the dang thing. She's already, I saw a sidebar. I saw her practice. She did a practice vault. Killed it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Killed it. Oh my goodness. So it's so good to see what taking care of your mental health can do for somebody, right? And
Being brave.
Yes.
And I think that's the number one goal is hey, I need help. Raising your hand, speaking up, and seeking help.
Yeah, we have someone here in the Rooted in Progress Dream Center who did exactly that. Y'all know it's a team here in Rooted in Progress. We got our EP, our executive producer, Nyesha Harper, in the building. How you feeling today? You good?
I feel good.
You're
How
good?
You
Welcome,
doing?
Nyesha.
I'm so excited to have you a part of this. I got to be real with our audience, even you, Dr. Martin. What happened is we meet weekly to plan. And I said, y'all, I think what would be so powerful if one of us, we just share our story. Right? Because we're all sitting around this table. I've dealt with mental health issues. I've been through therapy. I've gone through a lot in my life. We all have. But is there someone here outside of our normal hosts who wants to come on and share their story? And Nyesha is brave. Terrance, you talk about bravery.
Yes.
Nyesha is brave enough to
Yes.
share and say, I've had to get help. I've gone through some things. So absolutely, we give my girl her
applaud that.
flowers, period.
Gold medal.
So Nyesha, I just want you to share your story. And at what point, what were you going through when you realized you needed
I
some
needed
help?
Yeah, so it was actually during the pandemic, and I heard you guys talking about that earlier in the podcast. And I was just like, because everyone knows me. I'm outgoing. I'm bubbly. Like,
Yeah.
I am the party. I put, it's me. But there came a point where I had just got out of a relationship, and I was like, living with my partner at the time, my boyfriend. I don't know. And I was just sad. And then my sad turned into rage. And then my rage turned into resentment. And then I started, I say to myself, like, I'm an auntie of 8. My nephew, Pride and Joy, I would just be like, nope, can't come and see you. They were about a 20-minute drive. My sister's like, what's going on with her? And then every day I come home from work and I'm just mad. I'm angry at the world. I was like, what is, and it wasn't just like, I'm annoyed. I just like, I don't belong. Like, what is going on with me? And my roommate at the time, she actually was in like psychology and working with kids in like group homes and stuff. And she's like, I don't think you're complaining, because that was my biggest thing. Like, I feel like I'm just complaining and I'm trying to find the easiest solution. Like, but I'm journaling. Someone said journal. I was like, I'm journaling. I don't find any relief. Like,
someone like a friend told you to journal.
Yes, like put it out on paper, like put it down, because at the end of the day, like before you go to sleep, like just get it all out, like what you did today or how you felt today, and maybe that'll be an outlet. But I'll write in my journal and then I'll hop in the shower and just cry and just sit on the floor and just cry. And I'm like, why am I? And I couldn't identify what my emotions were. I'm like, am I sad? Am I mad? Like, but what is it stemming from? Did I not heal from that relationship that I was just in? Because as y'all also talked about, we're just trained to just go, and go.
Keep it pushing.
And so I think that also had a part to do with it. I'm like, I need to talk to someone. But I was like, I just can't talk to anybody. That's weird.
How was your search to find someone to talk to?
So I personally, like all of my providers, no matter what I'm getting treated for, to be female. I did want someone who looked like me, who can understand my struggle, you know, or just can relate to me more than someone else.
Anybody.
And so I did find an office that had 4 practicing physicians, that they're all licensed. And I was initially going to meet with one of the Black women in there, but then she was too busy with clients. So she said like, hey, my partner right next door to me has opening. Would you mind meeting with her? And I had a conversation with both of them in the room before, like a consultation, if you will. And I was like, okay, I can do this. Like, she's a woman, she's young, she can relate. And so that's how it started. And I'm so thankful. I wish I would talk to her, and I had sessions with her up until I moved here to Florida, into Tampa about 2 years ago. And, of course, because she's not licensed in Florida, she's like, I legally can't do this. But since then, it's been hard, because I think once you get into the rhythm of learning the tools and resources from, your therapist, trying to go to a new one is hard.
It's tough.
Because it's like you have to start all over again.
Yeah.
It's like, they ain't got to tell you about, dang, I was born in San Diego, raised here. And I got to start all the way from the beginning. It's like, I feel like, I got so much, I made so much progress. But I will say I've taken those tools that she's given me. When I have my down days, I revert back to the emails that she sent me. Working in news, you go crazy. You go stir crazy. And I'm like, you know what? I don't want to pull away. Let me just revert back to what I already learned.
Yeah. Dr. Martin, when you hear her story and you hear what she was experiencing and going through, is that pretty typical with someone, or would you say what was she experiencing during that time? Could it have been some form of depression? Could it have been some form of anxiety? From hearing her story, what did you see that she was going through?
Well, first, I just want to tell you I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
For getting help, for being on the other side and sticking with your provider. That's amazing. That's half the battle.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds pretty typical, right? To have these big emotions and not know where they're coming from or the why, to try all sorts of solutions to figure it out. I mean, I usually also hear people reaching for things that are like quick and what I call quick and dirty dopamine hits, like drinking too much or partying too much, all those kinds of things to make yourself feel better. But I love that you had the sense of self enough to realize this journaling ain't it.
It's not
and to reach out for help. I also really want to just highlight how hard it is and how it can feel so hard to find a good clinician. And I hope we have some time where we could talk about the details of how to do that. But yeah, again, just so proud of you.
Thank you
for reaching out for help.
Thank you. And I don't want to discourage journaling or other healthy coping mechanisms, because everyone's different.
Right.
Things work differently for other people, but I don't want people to go down the dark road and, turn to drinking or whatever the case may be. Because, I am a testament. This headphone just came out, but it's okay. We're going to keep going. But yeah.
You got this. And I'm proud too for multiple reasons. For you to recognize that there was something wrong and listen and do something, and then to also want to share. Because like you said, Terrance, it's to be brave enough to share with a stranger is half the battle, right? And then to be brave enough to share on a podcast that's going out to so many people who are tuning in live and all of those things, that's difficult within itself. But I think it shows, like I said with Simone, the impact of getting help and what it can do. Because is it safe to say at one point you didn't talk about this with anyone? Is that right?
No, I just kept it in, and my sister was my confidant, and she's like, she'll tell me, but like do this, and I can only listen to because she's closest to me for so long. Until I need an outside source. Yeah.
Well, and the thing about it, you said you kept that in.
I did.
We all know that pressure bursts pipes. And I think that's the problem that us Black men have, is that we're taught to just hold things in. You have to release. We have to let go. Yeah. And Nyesha, she said half of it was the bravery. I think the other half was the fact of recognizing that you were dealing with something.
Yeah.
And then being brave enough to seek help, and even being brave enough to sit back and tell us your story here on this live podcast. So I think the number one thing is just recognizing that we need help. Like, let that out.
Yeah.
It's tough, man. Hey, I'm going to say this, and I tell this to my son. My son is 16. Son, cry. If it
there we
hurts,
go.
Cry.
Yeah.
Cry. It's okay. I've cried. There's times I've sat in my office and just shed a tear, or just get emotional on where I am and all that I've been through, and it feels good, because if you don't let that out,
let it out,
and I'm like, Nyesha, my earpiece just popped out too.
Talk about letting it out.
Letting it out, absolutely. So.
Dr. Martin, there's so many resources out there, and I think or let me speak for myself. I feel like when we're talking about, someone needs to get help, the only help we think about is therapy. So what other resources can people utilize or go to if they're recognizing they need some form of help as it relates to their mental health?
Okay, can we first talk about the finding therapy, though? That's a tough one.
Yes.
All right, so there's a beautiful website from Dr. Joy called Therapist for Black Girls. Now, they're also therapists for Black men, too, but that just happens to be the name of the website. So that is my favorite one to recommend to people, because it's a collection of us that do this work, that are there, that you can find a therapist. And even if you find someone there in your state that isn't perfect for you, they know someone, because we all know each other.
Yeah.
So same thing goes for Psychology Today. If you go on there, you look with your insurance, you click Black African American, you're going to have a more narrow list of people. Even if you feel like you can't afford them, reach out to them. They'll help you find somebody.
Can you give us that website one more time?
So the two sites are Therapy for Black Girls, and the other one is Psychology Today. And remember, now that we're in this virtual world, you can see anyone in your state.
Telehealth.
So it doesn't have to be just your city. That's so important.
Wow.
So it really opens up the possibilities of people that you can work with.
So you said a word that most people are scared of: insurance.
Yeah.
What if I don't have insurance?
Oh, well, plenty of people will take you on sliding scale.
Yep.
There's also a lot of community centers also have a lot of folks of color working in them. And they will take you on sliding scales also, like
as in working with you with whatever you have to pay.
Whatever you have.
Okay.
There are also universities that have clinics, and I mean, you can pay $5 a session, sometimes even for free.
Wow.
So there are a lot of options, but reach out to a clinician of color, and we're happy to help. I spend a lot of time helping people that I can't see find resources.
No excuse, people.
Yeah, that is huge. What about those resources outside of therapy? Like, where else can someone go? Like, maybe
Church.
therapy isn't working. What are some other resources?
Yeah, like I said, get physically active. That will help you process the rage and the trauma and the anxiety in your body. Be mindful of what you're putting into your body, because when you're putting, a lot of drugs and alcohol, when you're, putting unhealthy foods in your body, that makes you feel worse. Yeah. So those are things you have immediate control over. And like I said, man, people often are like, I'm going to start exercising and I'm going to go 6 days a week and do a HIIT class. No, just walk for 10 minutes. A 10-minute walk does so much for your mental health. So I think there's really simple things like that. Making relationships with people in your community, your friends, your kids' parents, things like that, and being the first one to take the leap to talk about real stuff.
Yeah.
There we go.
Because people want real connection in this world, and you just have to be brave enough to kind of put that step forward.
Those are some good tidbits.
Absolutely.
I have a question. Anthony Sanders on our Facebook page. Do you trust medical treatment or prescription to help with mental health issues?
Oh, yeah. Okay. So I wish we could have like a hierarchy of things that are stigmatized in our community. So it's like I can get people into therapy, but the medication piece of it is like sometimes impossible.
Oh, wow. Okay.
There's the stigma against medication is huge, but it works.
I was almost prescribed medication, but I didn't want it.
No.
And I'm glad I didn't.
The best.
Look at me now.
Not everybody needs it.
Yeah.
Okay.
But the best outcomes are when you're doing therapy and medication together. I'm not a prescriber of medication, but if my client is so traumatized, if my client is so depressed, if they're so anxious that they can't even engage in the therapy, right? That's when they need a little help with medication. And it's not forever. It's just until we can, like you said, learn the skills, get our, start making some progress. When you start experiencing what it feels like to feel good. What it feels like to feel good. I think, when you were talking, Terrance, about the letting it out and crying, I was thinking the other side of that is that when we're constricted with our emotion, on the sad side of it, we're also constricted with our emotion on the happy side. People do not realize that if you don't let yourself cry and feel those feelings, you also can't feel the height of joy, right? And so that's another reason to come.
Yeah.
That's another reason to work on yourself. You don't realize how good you could feel.
Wow. I want to share Tony Smith Saul said, it's not really a question, but I think this is pretty impactful. I just want to be able to be who I am, no matter. I want to be able to be who I am, no matter who my friends or family are. I consider people to be my family that don't treat me the way I want to be treated. I have dissociated identify disorder because of trauma, but I still love us, but I just want to be me. When you hear something like that, what's your reaction to that?
That a lot of us have to build our family. That sometimes there's, so much trauma in your family of origin. I mean, think of this. It's generations from slavery time, passed down of trauma and quick ways of getting that dopamine hit. There's a lot there. There's resilience, but there can be a lot. And sometimes the family just can't hold you. And so you have to go outside of it and find the people that will support you and celebrate you and reflect your values. And that is okay. There are many people out here doing that. We're doing a mix of it. So I support that is where that person is finding their peace.
And I have one more question for you before we head out of here. At what point, when you hear something that is alarming, whether it be from a friend, whether it be from a family member, whether it's from a coworker, where you say, I might need to get them Baker acted, or I might need to call 211 on their behalf or 988 on their behalf. At what point do you truly take that step, no matter what they say?
Listen, I just want to say how hard of a call that is for us. With Sonia Massey, who called for help and what happened. There are plenty of stories all around this country of us calling for help and ending up dead. So this is not a light choice to make. Even me as a therapist, it's, protocol. If someone is suicidal, if someone's harming their kid, you got to call police, and it is a hard decision to make.
Right.
I always say that you have to, if it's imminent, if it's desperate, but the best choice is to get them there, to get them to the hospital,
Right.
to cut out the need to call for law enforcement to help them get there. Ask for help. Ask for other people who can help organize this
Around
person.
them. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That's real.
Very impactful.
It just really is. I remember having to call the police to get a young man who had police trauma. Like, he'd already been beaten by the police. And I had to call the police to get him to the hospital. You understand what that is?
Gosh.
He's already terrified and not okay. And then on top of that, you're creating trauma. So, yeah, it's not a light decision to make, and I understand that. But don't do it alone.
I want to end with some local resources, local places you can go. I do sit on the board for the Crisis Center of Tampa Bay, an incredible local resource that folks can utilize by calling their numbers 211-988 for help, even beyond whether it's sexual abuse and or whether it's mental health. Are there other local areas or agencies and companies that folks can go to get help?
I'm sure there are. I'm not so well versed on them, but let's center that. But also calling 988 is a great resource.
Yeah.
By the way, I work with the organization that runs that nationally, and they're phenomenal. So, if you yourself are in a moment of crisis, call 988. If your colleague, your friend is in crisis, you can call them. They can help you walk through it without necessarily needing to get law enforcement immediately involved. So they're a great resource.
I would just say, just reach out. Just reach out.
That's the first step.
Just reach out.
Yeah.
Because you can talk, and write, walk that 10 minutes. But if you're not getting help, just reach out.
Yeah.
Like I did.
And I would say this too, even if, you can't find that perfect mental health counselor or don't have access to that mental health counselor, just reach out like Nyesha said. And that could be to a neighbor. That could be to a best friend. That could be to a parent. That could be to a pastor, a coach, a colleague.
Yeah.
Again, the first step is recognizing. The second step is being brave enough to reach out. And reach out, please.
Yeah.
Dr. Lisa gave the hotline, crisis hotline, suicide, mental health, mental illness, 988.
Make sure you make that call.
Remember, absolutely.
For sure. Dr. Martin, we appreciate you joining us.
Thank you so much.
Oh my gosh, so much good insight. Nyesha, I'm so grateful for you. Thank you for being here. We appreciate you as well, and you sharing your story with us. Absolutely. Again, anyone out there who needs help. And of course, I go through some of these messages and we have them every podcast. Oh, it's not just Black people. Again, we're not saying that, right? Mental health affects everyone. But when you are a minority, right, unfortunately, there are just a few more hurdles you have to cross when it comes to getting the help you need. So that's why we have this platform here to make sure that those people are seen and heard and valued and respected and can get the help that they deserve. But please do not get it confused. Yes. We know this is an issue that affects everyone.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Hey, thanks for joining us, everybody. Don't forget, we are here every Thursday. I know we started a little late. We had some other streams we had to do for WFLA, but we are here every Thursday, 11 a.m. You can join the conversation live. Get those questions in. They can get answered just like today. You can join us live on Facebook or on WFLAnow.com. Then make sure you actually subscribe and like us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and you can rewatch this on YouTube. So go ahead and join us on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts for Rooted in Progress. We appreciate y'all joining us. Y'all have a great one.
Thank you, guys.